Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining me. Please forgive the slightly dishevelled dew. For those of you that have children already, you'll probably already know what bliss the 10-minute shower can be every 3 days. So I took my luxury, and if I don't do this now, then it probably won't get done. So I'm taking my opportunities and rolling with them. I also wanted to thank you for joining me today in particular because it is my 36th birthday, and I've done a lot of reflecting today while I've spent some joyful times with my tiny people. We went for a squelchy, muddy walk through the woods for all my little legs, and they thoroughly enjoyed getting covered in mud. I thoroughly did not enjoy cleaning it up, but nonetheless, I'm very grateful to have had the joy. In terms of reflecting where I was 5 years ago, I'd all but forgotten that I had booked myself as a belated 30th birthday present to myself, a trip to India. The most incredible trip to India, actually. Something as encapsulated that I hadn't really ever done before. I'd been much more of a roamer rather than a planned, scheduled trip abroad type of person. But this was very special, and so 5 years ago I booked this trip and was preparing to go and have the trip of a lifetime. Just myself. My fiance at the time, my now husband, was not invited, let's say, not because there was anything wrong, but it was really important to me that I was doing this, maybe as the last trip that I ever did as just me. And before career and life and marriage and responsibility got in the way of those types of experiences. As it happens, I didn't actually get to go on the trip. I almost did. I made it all the way to the departure lounge and had to be let out through the back door, which is something I've never done before. And it wasn't because I was a nervous flyer. I don't enjoy flying, but I tolerate it. I'm well travelled enough to say that I tolerate it reasonably enough to not get in my way. But I hadn't been feeling well the night before, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong on the train going up to the airport. I was on the phone to my GP. He said they don't see any overt things that I shouldn't go, but just to make sure I stay hydrated and be careful with the local cuisine. By the time I got to the departure lounge, to the gate, in fact, it was a bit of a wreck, and couldn't put my finger on why. And I decided to stop what I was doing, give up the trip of a lifetime, and turn around and come home. And for all I will always wonder what the air would have smelled like watching the sun come up over the Taj Mahal, which was meant to be part of my trip. I don't regret it for a second. What actually transpired was that I had some tests and some scans, and they found uterine fibroids incidentally, and they found that I had precancer cells, cervical precancer cells, and that was the catalyst for deciding no more waiting. I was ready to start a family, or at least what I lacked in readiness. I was sure that I wasn't prepared to risk not having a family for the sake of putting it off until I felt more ready. If I had have gone to India, I probably wouldn't have had those tests. I would have just pushed it off, and the events that were making me worry would have passed, and I would have just let it go, and it maybe would have been a good while until those things were discovered in a more systematic way, and I maybe would have missed the boat altogether with having children. Just quite a feat, really, to think about and reflect as you're walking through woods with tiny feet, and people talking and laughing, that that it almost didn't come to be. It was a real either cosmic alignment, that the universe was adamant that I had to pay attention to these signs, or a bit of serendipity. Serendipity. Either which way, it did start that chain of events, and I did decide that I wasn't prepared to put off having my children or my potential for having a family any longer. Whether that meant that I was going to have my babies within my relationship that was progressing and was scheduled to go on to marriage, or if it meant that I had to down tools with all of that and start again and potentially do that journey on my own. I was good with that. I was sure enough of that decision that I was okay with either of those options. And I talked it out with my partner, and we decided to go ahead with some parameters that I will talk about in another video, because that's not the purpose of now. And is a whole subject in and of itself, the dynamics of our family and how this came to be. But I wanted to talk specifically about that decision making, I guess, with having babies. I knew I wanted family. I knew I wanted to try and have babies, and as sure as I was that I did want them, when the time came to actually push the button, it was a peculiar sense of finality about it, which I wasn't really prepared for. It seems really obvious now on reflection and hindsight that that it is a really big deal. There is no going back. If you bring a life into this world, your life is forever changed. There is no going back. And even for the strongest of stomachs, the surest of hearts, that's a big commitment. And I remember trying for my daughter, and in the throes of the moment, my then fiance saying, are we really going to give this a go? And taking a deep breath and thinking, I am shit scared of this. This is no going back territory, but yes, let's give it a go. And we did, and took 3 cycles to conceive my daughter. I'm pretty sure there were some early losses on each of those cycles, actually. I think all of them took to a degree. But yeah, 3 months was pretty good going, especially for me, who was very skeptical about whether I could get pregnant, let alone to carry a pregnancy to term. I was very mindful of that all the way through all of my pregnancies. Actually, I didn't really get to enjoy them because I was so conscious that the risk factors for losing the pregnancies were so pressing, and I was very much looking out for the worry signs rather than spending the vast majority, like most women do, just in the bubble of being pregnant and looking forward to the baby coming. So deciding to have one baby, the finality of that decision, pretty big going just for one. I have 3. You maybe do too. You may be thinking about another one. You or maybe have none yet. Rest assured, if you have none yet, whether people tell you when they're caught up in the moment and the joy and talking about how wonderful it is to have children, I would be surprised if that lingering sense of, am I really going to do this? What does it mean? Slight edge of panic wasn't a reality for at least a fleeting moment for most, if not all, of your fellow parents and parents to be. It is a big deal. It's wonderful if it's what you want, but it's a big deal for one. Deciding to have 2, I didn't know. I didn't start this knowing that I had any set idea of how many children I wanted, or cope with or tolerate. I didn't really know how it was going to go. I had a sense that it would be good, that I would be good at it. There's very few things in my life where I've had that feeling, that sense that it will be okay. I can do this. I know that I will be good at this. Parenting was one of them, that I had that underlying feeling that it would be okay. Fortunately, for the most part, I've been okay. I've been right about that. I did go with my gut, and my gut has steered me in the right direction so far. So my daughter was born, and I got off to a flying start, and I loved being a mother, and those first few months were great, and I was so caught up with her. I didn't love her straight away, not in the conventional sense. Talk about that again maybe in the future, but just as an overview, it wasn't an immediate overwhelming, all-consuming, giddy love that people describe and is made out in the movies. I had this overwhelming drive to take care of her for the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden, that traditional love that we're more familiar with kicked in, and I was sure that well, I wasn't sure. I remember saying to a friend that I love her so much, I can't imagine needing anything else or anyone else. And yeah, she was probably 6 weeks old at the time when I said this. And um, another 6 weeks later, it dawned on me. I was having such a good time. We were out and about all the time. We were in the sling. We were together. I was getting stuff done. I was really functional. There weren't very many bits that were unpleasant to put me off. And I remember saying to my, by this point, husband, that I had been lost in that pregnancy. I hadn't really enjoyed being pregnant in the way that I would have liked to. I hadn't been mindful, is probably the more appropriate way to term it, and being present in that. And I wanted to be. And I didn't want to not experience being pregnant again. Let's try for another baby. And my sense of urgency with it was, firstly, I was 32 with a new baby. So by the time, even if we tried straight away, by the time another baby came along, I'd be 33. And with autoimmune conditions, health conditions, the older you get, the scarier it gets. And we'll maybe look into the realities of age-related impact on pregnancy and healthy babies at term in another video. It's maybe not for today, but those were very real, very pressing, coming from health sciences, that they were very much in the forefront of my brain. Those realities, those statistical, tangible realities of, it's not just a feeling, these are very real things that I should be factoring into my decisions. And yeah, so I very quickly decided I wanted to experience what it was like to be pregnant again, and I could handle another baby, and I could do that. And the argument was that if I wait any longer, I might not be able to. It might not be safe or healthy for either me or the baby. And I wouldn't have the energy. So autoimmune conditions are really draining for your energy. The older you get, the less energy you have naturally anyway, just as an organic evolution. So that was a really big risk. I have lots of friends who are older parents, who are excellent parents, have excellent children, but they're knackered. They are wiped out most of the time, and that wasn't a reality that, if it was avoidable for me, that I really wanted to face. So it was weighing up those very personal decisions. And lastly, which I chuckle about when people question my decision, it was my buffer, my comic relief, was that I wanted to have a clean run of nappies. So to me, it would have been hell to have got one up and out and on their way, and then to have to go back and do that whole newborn nappy thing again from scratch, at least in quick succession. They're relatively in with ages and stages, and you can kind of all grow up together, I guess. But yeah, definitely getting the run of nappies out of the way was a big bonus for me. Just something to think about. So, yeah, 6 months after I had my daughter, I fell pregnant with my son. And in true style, with my baby, he was 2 weeks late as well, 10 days late. My daughter was 13 days late, by conventional dating of pregnancies. So, yeah, um, I juggled having two back to back really well. It was really hard because I hemorrhaged as I had my son. So my iron levels, my energy levels were super, super low, and I didn't really have the best of support systems after I had my son. And you would think if somebody was going to fall to pieces, that would be the situation. But I didn't, and it was okay. And I got my head down, and we got on, and we got through the days, and my babies both thrived. They were feeding well and seemed happy, and were developing well in line with the milestones. Everybody was happy, and so my son was born in October, and in February I had an unplanned miscarriage. And up until that point, I hadn't realised that I really even wanted a baby. It hadn't really been on my mind at all. And then I got a bit obsessive about it, and realised I really did. And at um, well, turning 35, um, my my window for that was really massively decreasing. So if I wanted to do something, I had to do it then. Um, so I did. I talked my husband into it, and we tried for number 3, and we conceived in the autumn, and she arrived last May when I was 35, so I must have been 34. Beg your pardon. And it's harder now with 3, with competing needs, and not enough hands. And I think one of the hardest bits about that is the influence of work. I think having a solid support network, childcare plan makes a big difference to how you juggle and how routine driven you can be with 3 little people in quick succession. There's a longer gap in between my second 2 children, which has its good bits and bad bits, but they're still very close together. And I think for me, it wasn't the easiest of decisions, and I'm very lucky that that my husband trusts me enough to cope and to manage and to see things through, um, and to not screw it up really badly, I guess. Obviously, there are difficult days and hard to manage situations, but that would happen. Those feelings, those senses would arise with or without children. They're just different with children, and I guess a lot of the worry and a lot of the fear is is extrinsic. It's outside of myself. It's about other people, which makes it so much more bearable. It makes it more focused, more goal orientated, more empathetic, more kind, because it's about the well-being of somebody else rather than just myself, which for me makes the difficult things much more bearable, taking it outside of myself and my needs. Um, it keeps me off my pity pot, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Decision making, having babies close together, mine was somewhat on the fly. I didn't go in with a hard and set plan. I didn't know that it would feel as overwhelming to really push that button and go forward with it as it did. I don't regret anything for a second. It was definitely the right decision for me. But maybe if I'm bringing those things into the conversation, then it makes it easier to talk about. It's okay to feel a bit scared that you're going to push that button and something is going to change. forever. It's okay to make decisions on the fly and for them to be the right decisions. Sometimes you don't have enough information right at the very start to be able to map it all out, and life happens and it doesn't necessarily play out the way that you thought it would. I thought I would go to India and I was going to get married, and in a couple of years I would start a family. That would have been completely the wrong thing for me and then needed a bit of a nudge from the universe. I would rather have it not been in the form of a cancer scare and quite uncomfortable fibroids. But that aside, all is well that ends well, and I'm very, very lucky. I think there's a lot to go into with decisions, but there we go. We've got a bit of a foothold now. Maybe we can expand on that over time. I hope you're all well and you've had a lovely weekend. Until next time.